Today, we're going to absolutely rip the lid off some really eye-opening new reports coming out of Western and regional media. These reports completely pull back the curtain on the unseen military dynamics playing out right now in the Middle East. If you've been following the news, you might think you have the whole picture, right? Well, as we're about to see, there is a whole lot happening just out of sight. I gotta ask you directly, what is the actual hidden reality behind the latest Middle East escalations? We're looking at a classic case of the seen versus the unseen. You have these official narratives put out by defense ministries, and then you have the actual facts on the ground being uncovered by major financial and investigative journalists. And honestly, those official stories are pretty much obscuring the tactical realities of what's really going down. Okay, let's dive into this. On our agenda today, 1. The impact on U.S. forces. 2. The UAE's secret military role. 3. The targeting of Iran's energy supply. And 4. Saudi concerns and regional risks. Starting right off with Section 1, the impact on U.S. forces. You know, there's a totally stark contrast between the official line and what actually happened at the American base in Kuwait. Initially, the Kuwait Defense Ministry claimed that, hey, all incoming missiles and drones were successfully intercepted by their air defenses, zero damage. But then, a comprehensive Bloomberg report dropped, revealing that the base was, in fact, hit and took some really substantial damage. So, the crucial point is the sheer scale of the unacknowledged reality here. Western media confirmed that Iran used their Fideh-110 ballistic missiles for this strike. And the damage? 5 U.S. soldiers were reported injured, with 1 or 2 of them actually in serious condition. On top of that, the U.S. took a massive financial and tactical hit. We're talking about the destruction of multiple incredibly expensive MQ-9 Reaper drones, alongside some pretty significant debris damage. And this all builds into this crazy rapid timeline of escalation. It's like a high-stakes game of tit for tat. Just days ago, the U.S. conducted strikes on the Bandar Abbas port. Then, 2 days ago, Iran retaliates directly against that Kuwait base with those Fateh-110 missiles. And then just last night, Iran activated its air defenses over Bushehr, claiming they actually intercepted U.S. and Israeli spy drones over Qashim Island. Iranian media even released images of what they say is the drone debris. Moving on to Section 2, the UAE's secret military role. Over 2,800. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. That is the massive number of missiles and drones the UAE has faced from Iran. To put that into perspective, that's significantly more than any other country in the region, including Israel. And that number is absolutely vital for understanding their motivation for what happens next. Now, what's really interesting here is a blockbuster report from the Wall Street Journal. It completely shatters the public illusion that the UAE has just been this passive bystander. According to the journal, the UAE has actively conducted dozens of secret strikes on Iran. This completely flips the script. Initially, you had global leaders from places like India, France, and the US vehemently condemning Iranian attacks on the UAE. And why wouldn't they? They all have massive economic investments tied up there. The UAE was widely viewed as a sympathized victim. But what those leaders likely didn't know at the time was that behind the scenes, the UAE was secretly executing dozens of coordinated joint military strikes right alongside Israel. Which leads us to an absolutely massive contradiction. Before this conflict really boiled over, Gulf countries publicly swore that their airspace and military bases would strictly not be used for any attacks. But fast forward to the current reality, reports are confirming that UAE territory, its airspace, and its airports have all been actively utilized by the US and Israel for direct attacks. The UAE itself is now a full-on active participant. That brings us to Section 3, targeting Iran's energy supply. The specifics here are absolutely crucial. These covert joint strikes deliberately targeted key locations around the Strait of Hormuz, like Qashm and Abu Musa Islands. But more importantly, they didn't just hit military outposts. Actually, they went after the absolute lifelines of Iran's economy: the Bandar Abbas oil refinery, facilities on Lavon Island, and the Asaluye petrochemical complex. You see, moving from military targets to critical oil, gas, and chemical infrastructure, that completely changes the rules of the game. It is a severe escalation. The rationale being reported is that this was a direct, calculated retaliation for Iranian attacks on Amardi oil and gas facilities, notably answering the major strike on Iranian oil reserves. They were hitting right where it hurts.
But look, hitting energy infrastructure has massive global consequences. These specific strikes drew severe and immediate international backlash. It got so volatile that the U.S. literally had to step in and directly demand that Israel and the UAE halt their attacks on these energy facilities. They had to cool things down to protect global energy market stability.
Section 4, Saudi Concerns and Regional Risks.
And this brilliantly illustrates a really intense rift developing right now within the Gulf. On one side, you've got Saudi Arabia showing strict diplomatic caution to protect those global energy markets. On the exact opposite side, the UAE is pushing these aggressive, covert military actions. It's gotten so tense that reports indicate Riyadh actually went to Washington back in April to officially complain about the UAE's destabilizing behavior. Saudi Arabia's primary fear here is deeply, deeply concerning. They're worried that the UAE's covert actions are going to provoke Iran into a broader retaliation against all Gulf energy investments. If Iran decides to just indiscriminately strike oil infrastructure across the entire region, we are looking at an immediate massive spike in global oil and gas prices. That is a shockwave that would literally hit every single consumer on Earth. The diplomatic aftermath of all this is, well, it's pretty much totally chaotic. Right now, Iran is preparing evidence for the UN Security Council, claiming that UAE soil was used for attacks that resulted in civilian casualties. Meanwhile, an Iranian advisor is out there claiming that negotiations over the Strait of Hormuz are collapsing entirely, alleging that former President Trump and Israel are sabotaging any potential deal. Because of all this, the US is now having to issue active warnings to clear the strait. So, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with this final, really critical thought to chew on. Will these hidden military maneuvers, we're talking the covert strikes, the unacknowledged damages to U.S. bases, the secret alliances, will they permanently destabilize the Strait of Hormuz and, by domino effect, the entire global energy supply chain? Because as we've seen today, the unseen reality is far, far more dangerous than the official statements want us to believe. And those economic ripples, they could very well reach us all sooner than we think.